What do you think these sunglasses are worth? Does the price change if I tell you they're made by hand in Japan by a company that's been perfecting the craft of eyewear for 120 years? What if I told you they were created by renowned designer Kenzo Takada and they won prestigious design awards in Paris? Does that change the price? And by the way, a very limited number of these were produced, so it's really hard to find them. Plus, since the designer sadly passed away in 2020, these are one of the last things he ever designed. So after all that, what's your guess? I'm betting the price in your head went up as I gave you more of the story. Notice how I never mentioned any functional benefits like the lightweight titanium frame or the high-quality polarized lenses. For all you know, they might be no better than a $15 pair from Walmart. But I'm willing to bet your guess was a lot higher than $15. And that's because when it comes to luxury, the story often carries more weight than the actual product. So, okay, you're probably wondering what's the real price. These sunglasses retailed for about $700, but I got them as a gift from a friend in the eyewear industry. Let's explore how luxury brands craft these stories to convince you to buy into their hype and whether paying luxury prices is ever really worth it. First, let's just get this out of the way. It's really not hard to criticize how ridiculous luxury goods are sometimes, like this stable essentials bag by Hermes. Like, what even is this? I guess it's for carrying things that you use to take care of your horse. I'm obviously too poor to understand what you'd even carry in this thing because I can't even afford a single horse, much less a $4,250 bag to hold all of my equestrian essentials. It's not hard to see how this might be extremely controversial. Luxury goods force us to ask questions like, why do $4,000 horse bags exist in a world where millions can't even afford to feed themselves? People have questioned the ethics of luxury goods for pretty much all of history. Even Plato in ancient Greece saw luxury goods as vain and greedy. But on the other hand, luxury goods provide dignified work for skilled artisans who are passionate about their craft. It's kind of ironic that people celebrate the craftsmanship and creativity involved in making luxury goods, but often criticize the act of buying them. Hermes, the company who made this bag, rakes in billions of dollars every year. So how did we get here? Who's buying these $4,000 horse purses? And more importantly, why are they willing to pay so much for them? To answer these questions, we need to understand one fundamental truth about luxury. It isn't just about price. Just because something is expensive doesn't make it luxury. A rare collectible Pokemon card is expensive, but it's not luxury. Balenciaga sells these $3,000 packing tape bracelets, and that's not luxury either, although high fashion does often use elements of luxury. Luxury goes way deeper than just price. For thousands of years, luxury has been about elevation. The wealthy aristocrats and royalty would elevate themselves above the common people through the things they owned. Until relatively recently, the royal class was seen as ordained by the heavens, and the luxury objects they owned were physical representations of their divine authority. This was taken very seriously, by the way. If we were in 14th century England, I would not be allowed to own this silk scarf. Silk and furs were reserved for the ruling class, and it was illegal for lowly plebs like me to own them. These kinds of laws span several cultures and times, from Edo period Japan to ancient Rome. Luxury has always been about displaying status. Everyday etiquette, like how the ruling class ate, walked, or dressed, was a clear display of social standing. Even the word etiquette in French literally means label, directly linking it to modern luxury. Just as etiquette was a label of social conduct and showed social hierarchy, today's luxury logos act as labels of status. But starting around the Enlightenment era, monarchies became less dominant, especially across the Western world. With luxury being more accessible to everyone rather than just the ruling class, luxury designers needed to find new ways to make their goods feel exclusive. This is why luxury brands make their stuff so hard to purchase. You might think that buying a limited edition Ferrari is as simple as having the money. Just walk into the dealership, pick out your car, and if you can pay, they'll happily hand over the keys, right? Wrong. Ferrari flips the script. Instead of convincing you to buy their car, you have to convince them to let you. VinWiki has an incredible video about the tactics of getting the privilege to buy a limited edition Ferrari, but basically you start by buying a few less popular models in colors they're struggling to sell. If you really want to get their attention, spend like $100K on special add-ons for your custom vehicle, like $1,000 red seatbelts or $1,500 for yellow brake calipers or a $5,000 $1,000 carbon fiber engine cover. Then you have to attend their events, their rallies, and performance driving school classes around the world. Simply having the money isn't enough. You need to show loyalty to the brand. Ferrari's strategy works because they only make around 8,400 vehicles each year, allowing them to make sure every owner represents the brand positively. For comparison, Toyota produces around 10 million cars annually. And by the way, you'd better not complain about Ferrari publicly or even think about buying from a competitor. And after all that, if you're lucky, you might get the honor of spending $1 million on a limited edition car. But even then, you probably won't get to choose the color or options. They decide that for you based on what's available. It's hard to imagine why anyone would jump through so many hoops and grovel with sales reps just to buy a car. But I think it boils down to three things. One is that rich people are perversely attracted to the idea of rejection and embarrassment. People who can afford $1 million Ferrari probably have a lot of influence and are surrounded by yes men. They probably like the challenge. Second, people crave exclusivity. With no royalty deciding who owns what like in the past, brands make their own rules. And finally, the weight builds anticipation and desire. Ferrari feeds this by letting you visit their factory in Italy to watch your car being built, even sending you progress photos. We value things that take time to acquire. There are entire subreddits and strategy guides online for how to get access to the most high-end luxury goods. This dedication to the brand extends well past the initial purchase, by the way. Some of the most highly valued Ferraris are from the 1960s. They have suspension so stiff you'll feel every bump in the road. The handling isn't any better. With no power steering, every turn feels like a workout. You can smell the gasoline seeping into the interior cabin. It's uncomfortable, noisy, and high maintenance, but millions of people still aspire to own them. There's an old saying that you have to suffer for beauty, and luxury brands have this down to an art form. They know that what really matters isn't convenience or practicality, it's the experience. That bumpy ride and the deafening engine growl all help you form a bond with your car. Or maybe the fumes from the gasoline burn off a few brain cells, making it easier to justify your multi-million-dollar purchase. Also, these vehicles require a ton of upkeep. It costs $10,000 for a simple brake pad replacement, compared with a few $100 for the same maintenance on a Toyota Camry. Toyota might be a much more convenient car to drive and maintain, but nobody dreams of owning a Camry. This isn't just a car thing, by the way, it's all luxury objects. Handbags made of ostrich or crocodile leather require regular, careful cleaning. Expensive wines need to be stored in temperature-controlled rooms. And a Rolex watch is sensitive to magnetism, moisture, and even shock, requiring routine servicing. Luxury goods can give their owners a sense of personal satisfaction and pleasure, and also a great deal of pain. But the more effort you put into maintaining your luxury objects, the more you treasure them. But luxury brands don't just stop at the product. They take things even further, especially in their advertising. In many luxury ads, the models look like bored, judgmental mannequins. It almost looks like you're somehow inconveniencing them. The models are acting like gatekeepers. The idea is to make you feel like you have something to prove. Only those who are worthy can buy. Luxury brands aren't just selling products. They're trying to dominate their customers. The bored, emotionless stare also serves another purpose. They don't want a model or really anything to outshine the object itself. The product needs to be so revered, so untouchable, that even billionaires are groveling to get their hands on it. And that brings us to another quirk of luxury. They don't care if you like them. In fact, they're perfectly fine with being polarizing or downright weird. Luxury brands aren't looking for mass approval because they only need to sell to a few thousand devoted fans. Remember that $4,000 Hermes horse bag I was making fun of a little while ago? Pretty much everyone on Earth thinks it's ridiculous, but there's a tiny group of people who absolutely love it. And that is who Hermes is focused on. When you compare this to non-luxury brands, the difference is stark. They'll bend over backwards to make a purchase as effortless and mindless as possible. One-click shopping on Amazon is the ultimate expression of convenient buying. There are entire marketing teams whose only job is to make the buying process as streamlined as possible. One of the core tenets of modern design is a seamless experience. Convenience and an almost sterile efficiency is the #1 priority. Going back to the Toyota Camry, it's designed to be so smooth and reliable that you might forget it's even under you,
enhancing their comfort and convenience. Ergonomic improvements for seating comfort were a focal point. The new Camry Comfort convenience.
It's basically the automotive equivalent of a warm bowl of unseasoned oatmeal. It serves a functional purpose, but the experience is utterly forgettable, and that's intentional. They want to appeal to as wide of an audience as possible by being as inoffensive as possible. But comfort and convenience don't have to be boring, especially in the world of luxury. And that's because luxury brands don't just sell products, they sell myths that elevate the product to a legendary status. There's an old legend about Rolls-Royce cars. If you balance a coin upright on the engine while it's running, the coin won't fall over. The idea is that the ride is so smooth and the engine is so quiet that nothing disturbs you. I mean, sure, the car is wrapped in 300 pounds of acoustic insulation and they even have foam inside of the tires to reduce noise, but I thought for sure that this was just a myth.
Let's find out anyway.
It turns out it's real. CarWow tested it, and yes, the coin stays balanced. If I tried this with my economy sedan, the coin would probably fall down into the engine bay, get jammed in the fan belt, and the whole thing would just explode. Nobody actually needs to balance a coin on their engine though, but that's kind of the genius of it. It's an unexpected way to show off how smooth the ride is. This is how legends are made. The Birkin bag by Hermes plays the same game. Some Birkin bags, like this one, go for well over $300,000. Weighing in at 2 kilograms, it's worth more than its weight in gold. So why do they command such a price? A very big part of it is the legend surrounding it. You hear stories of women stepping aside in Manhattan sidewalks for Birkin bag owners, or passengers buying an extra first-class seat just for their Birkin bag. I mean, sure, these stories might be exaggerated, but after the Rolls-Royce coin trick turned out to be real, can we really be sure? The power of these legends lies in their mystique. The more we talk about these stories, the more the legend grows. Is it true? Maybe, maybe not. But it doesn't have to be. There's another layer to luxury that goes even deeper than legends. Luxury isn't just about exclusivity or legendary experience and stories, it's also about time. Let's get one thing straight. In modern society, everything is about saving time. Instant gratification, convenience, and industrial efficiency rule our lives. It's all about squeezing the most out of every minute. Work fast, get things done, and don't think too much. Time is money. We snap photos with our phones instead of enjoying the process with a film camera. We fill our homes with IKEA furniture rather than investing in handcrafted pieces. We opt for prepackaged meals instead of cooking fresh and go for fast fashion over tailored clothes. Convenience is king, and almost every product is designed to save us time, even when it costs us quality. By the way, no judgment here, I do it too, it's just the world we live in. But luxury takes a different approach. It's not about saving time. Luxury focuses on quality of time. Take a luxury product that literally tells time, like a $20,000 Rolex or a $40,000 Patek Philippe watch. You'd think that because they're luxury items, they must be more accurate timepieces, right? Nope. Not even close. A $200 Seiko with a quartz movement is more accurate than a $20,000 Rolex. The time on a luxury mechanical watch actually slips several minutes every year. The implication is that if you can afford a $20,000 watch, you have the luxury to be a few minutes late for things. With a lot of luxury watches, it's not even very easy to tell the time. Good luck trying to read these at a glance, especially compared to just looking at your phone or the clock on your car dashboard. Some of them don't even show numbers at all. Once again, the message is clear. If you can afford to have a watch like that, you have all the time in the world. Things like time and money are one-dimensional variables. You can quantify it, but not everything that can be measured always matters. Luxury is an opportunity to enjoy free time. When I was getting ready to make this video, I went all in on the research. But the one thing I hadn't done was actually experience what it's like to go out and buy a luxury product. I mean, sure, I had those Japanese sunglasses I mentioned earlier, but those were given to me as a gift. Now, I'll be honest, I would probably never buy a luxury good like this. It's just not really my thing, but I figured it would make a nice gift for my wife. And I actually did learn a lot from the unboxing experience and how it relates to time. Look at how many steps there are to the unboxing experience here. Each step is designed to unfold and slowly build anticipation. You start out with a bag with a bunch of extra goodies they throw in there for you. Then there's the actual box. You untie the ribbon and open the box, and rather than finally seeing the scarf, it's still somewhat hidden by tissue paper. There's even a note about the company written on the inside. Once you remove the tissue paper, the scarf is finally revealed, but it's still folded up, so you need to unravel it to really appreciate it. The scarf itself is super light and airy and very gradually drapes onto the ground as it unfolds. Imagine if they just stuffed the scarf in a plastic bag and handed it to you while rushing you out of the store. It would be a totally different experience. This is why quality of time is such an important element of luxury. So we've been talking about how luxury brands are constantly stepping up their game. But even high-end premium brands that aren't technically luxury are borrowing some of these cues. That's where Asus comes in. They're today's sponsor. They really pay attention to the little details, and you can see that in the ZenBook S16. When you unbox the ZenBook, there are several layers to the product reveal. Each step shows how much thought went into the design and builds up anticipation. It's like opening up a present. Then, the first thing you notice on the laptop is the ceraluminum finish. They use a technology called plasma electrolyte oxidation, which creates a beautiful and durable finish commonly used in high-end luxury watches. It's smooth, no fingerprints, it just feels incredible. Everything about this laptop, from the geometric grille design made with CNC machining to the way the glossy A monogram tastefully reveals itself in certain light, shows that it's been carefully crafted, like you're getting something special. And Asus backs up that promise with fantastic specs. The 3K OLED display looks amazing. The colors are super vibrant. Plus, it's got all the ports you could need, so you're not stuck hunting for adapters. One thing I've really enjoyed is the ergonomic touchpad. It's 40% bigger than before and feels great to use. The keyboard is also spot on with a nice feel, and the 6 speakers provide an immersive listening experience. And it's ultra portable at only 1.1 centimeters thin and weighing only 1.5 kilograms. Now, I know performance is a really big deal when it comes to choosing a laptop. The short version is that the Asus ZenBook S16 is fast and quiet, perfect for getting stuff done. But if you want to learn more, go click the link in the description and see why the ZenBook might be your next laptop. Back to the video. There are other ways that luxury plays with time, and this aspect goes back thousands of years. King Tut was buried with his most prized possessions: golden burial masks, intricately crafted jewelry, and even an iron-bladed dagger. That last one is especially interesting since humans didn't even learn how to smelt iron from ore until several centuries after King Tut was around. So nobody's exactly sure how it was made. The current leading theory is that the iron used to make the blade came from a meteorite that fell from the sky. So to the Egyptians, iron was a material that was quite literally from the heavens. Just like everything else in King Tut's tomb, that dagger was meant to last for eternity. The choice of such a durable, precious material reflects a desire for the owner's memory to achieve a certain kind of immortality. King Tut was trying to own a piece of time by ensuring that his presence and values continue to exist long after he's gone. To put it more simply, he used luxury objects to create a legacy for himself. In modern times, this desire for legacy still happens with family heirlooms. It could be an engagement ring or one of the more common items passed down from generation to generation, a watch. One inevitable result of a legacy heirloom is that it will age and wear down with time. Take this Rolex, for example. The watch face of this Rolex was originally a deep black, but after decades of sun exposure, it fades to a rich brown. You'd think this would decrease the watch's value. Well, not in the world of luxury. This change is called a tropicalized dial, and it can actually double the price of the watch. Luxury products have a unique relationship with aging. With most things, when something gets old, we just call it worn out. But with a luxury product, it's called a patina. An object's patina is a testament to the object's history and its endurance. In the world of luxury, age actually enhances value, unlike pretty much every other consumer product. Every scratch and blemish tells a story of its past. The meaning of the object deepens as time passes, and its history grows. But it's not just lasting materials and patina that make time a major aspect of luxury. It's also about the painstaking, time-consuming process behind making every piece. Almost all luxury objects are at least partially made by hand. It takes up to 40 hours to make a Birkin bag. Building a single Ferrari takes hundreds of hours, literally months. For comparison, a new car rolls off the assembly line every 17 seconds at the Toyota factory in Kentucky. Patek Philippe watches like the Grandmaster Chime can take 100,000 hours from initial concept to the finished production model. That's 8 years of work. Luxury takes its time, and high-end timepieces are a prime example. With hundreds of tiny components, some watches have their gears hand-cut, tooth by tooth. Artisans even chamfer the edges of every piece to reduce friction, and so the light catches the edges in just the right way. It can take 8 hours just to chamfer the wheel of a single watch, and every mechanical watch has at least 3 of these wheels. And I haven't even gotten into the time it takes to train the artisans who make these objects. It takes 4 years to train someone at Hermes before they're even allowed to touch a leather good to be made for an actual customer. Only the best craftsmen with decades of experience are trusted to work with fragile leathers like reptile or ostrich. Because of all the time it takes to actually make luxury products, the designs themselves are usually pretty timeless. A Rolex Explorer from 70 years ago doesn't look too different from a Rolex today. In luxury, one does not talk about best sellers, but about long sellers. This is also one of the reasons why I consider the idea of luxury fashion to be kind of an oxymoron. Fashion changes every season. It's built around trends. That doesn't mean that clothing or fashion accessories can't be luxury. I would consider Hermes a luxury brand even though they sell clothing and accessories. The Hermes Birkin bag is a design that's older than I am. In contrast, a lot of luxury fashion like Balenciaga is more trend-driven. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's why I don't see luxury fashion as true luxury. It's the difference between a classic tailored suit and a crazy streetwear outfit. Both have their place, but only one is timeless. Luxury fashion brands also tend to make their products out of cheaper materials and poor working conditions. It doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time developing something that'll go out of style in just a few months. This is also one of the many reasons why I don't consider Apple a luxury brand. Yes, they definitely borrow some of the principles from luxury brands, but consumer electronics made by Apple are semi-disposable. It's usually easier to replace an Apple product than it is to repair it. Most products in the US economy are like this too, but it's not uncommon for luxury goods to outlive their original owner and even retain their value. Some luxury goods can even increase in value. Hermes Birkin bags have increased 500% in value over the last 35 years. That's 14% per year. For comparison, that's almost double the average growth rate of the S&P 500, which tracks some of America's biggest companies. Now, of course, not all luxury goods are investments. A 1980s Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit sold for $120K new, but it's only worth about $20K on the used market today. But the Cornish convertible, which sold for around $65K, can sell for well over $100K today. So even within the same brand, it's about which product stands the test of time. But then, all of this focus on timeless design requires a certain understanding of the product's history. Luxury customers need to learn to appreciate these finer details. Luxury is as much about knowing the object as it is about owning it. So I've got 2 pairs of sunglasses here. One is the $700 Masunaga frame that I showed you earlier, and the other is a $60 frame by Donahue. At first glance, they might look pretty similar, especially if you're looking at them on camera and can't hold them in your hand. But once you get up close and once you know what to look for, the differences are pretty obvious. The Masunaga frame just fits better. The bridge cradles your nose, and the body is made out of plant-based plastic. The nose pads are clear, not black, so they blend into your skin a lot better. It's a small touch, but it prevents the black blob on your nose look that cheaper frames give you. Now, compare that with the Donahue frame. It has basic plastic nose pads that are made to look metal, but they're plastic, and they dig into your face. And even after bending them, they just don't fit well. When you get a frame, you should be able to bend it and adjust it to fit your features. But the Donahue frame doesn't flex like it should, even when I heat the material. Masunaga, on the other hand, uses titanium temples that bend easily to stay rigid where it counts. Stretch the Donahue temples and the whole front of the frame warps out of shape, making the frame edges stick out from your face when you wear it. But with Masunaga, the frame holds its shape, even when you stretch it. It's these little details that add up. Masunaga frames are just more resolved. The top bar is seamlessly welded into the main body with hidden screws that give it a refined look. Meanwhile, the Donahue has clunky metal parts welded together, and the frame even rattles when you shake it. Hear that? I can easily spend another hour picking apart all these details, but you get the idea. Also, Masunaga, if you're watching this, hit me up. I'm a designer. I'd love to collaborate on an eyewear frame with you. But anyway, the more time you spend learning about the object, the more you appreciate it. At its best, luxury is about thoughtful enjoyment rather than mindless consumption. And these beautiful objects exist because passionate designers and customers care about the finer details. Because luxury objects are usually so expensive, you can't just buy them on a whim. Learning about the object makes the wait more enjoyable. You slowly build up a dream in your mind of one day owning it. This knowledge is also a very important performative part of luxury ownership. It's about showing people, like I just did, how knowledgeable and sophisticated you are. That's why some people get so pretentious about luxury goods. It's the same vibe as those wine enthusiasts going on about robust tannin structures and a finish with hints of charred cedar and brambleberries. You don't just own the object, you perform your expertise. But there's another layer to all this. We've talked a lot about how time relates to luxury, but we haven't mentioned anything about space. This is where things get weird. In 2018, an exclusive new luxury brand, Palessi, appeared on the scene. It had all the hallmarks of high-end luxury, but its impressive use of space was especially notable. They held a huge launch event at a glamorous Los Angeles storefront. Fashion influencers and socialites were invited to experience this new designer brand firsthand. They were impressed by the classy interiors and probably felt really special with media and press swarming the event.
For me to experience this as an Italian designer is amazing.
It looks really well made.
It's like very, European, very, upscale.
But here's the twist. Palessi didn't exist. It was a stunt by Payless, the discount shoe store. Those $600 designer shoes were actually $20 Payless shoes.
What? No way.
You've got to be kidding me. Shut up. Are you serious? No.
The shoes were exactly the same ones showed in their regular stores, but with a new store and a fancy location, people believed they were worth hundreds of dollars more. The Palessi stunt was a bold reminder of how much we buy into myths luxury brands create. Now, it would be easy to just say the influencers were a bunch of idiots and that luxury is all a sham. And honestly, that's true to an extent, at least some of the time, but I don't think it tells the whole story. First of all, I have to wonder whether these fashionista influencers were legit. I mean, I'm no expert, and even I can tell real leather from the synthetic stuff they were slapping on those shoes. But there's a bigger point here. It's not that those influencers were all clueless. It's more about how the space surrounding these objects radically changes their perceived value. For the first time in my life, I actually went to several luxury stores while researching this video. And honestly, I wish I'd done it sooner. It was fascinating to see how these brands made use of architectural spaces to create an air of exclusivity. The first thing I noticed was that these stores don't really feel like stores at all. They have way more in common with museums or art galleries where products are the centerpieces. It's hard to convey on YouTube, but stepping into these places is pretty impressive. Interior design can really warp your perception of a space. One employee I spoke with even called the Louis Vuitton flagship store a sacred place. Now, that is definitely taking things a bit too far. Buying a $3,000 purse is not a sacred experience, and anyone who tells you otherwise is nuts. But there are definitely elements of religious iconography in most luxury stores. You see ornate details, displays of opulence and excess, and of course, the products are treated like precious relics. One thing that really struck me was how almost all of the stores had antiques that referenced their cultural heritage, like the original Louis Vuitton trunk from 1875. The way luxury products are displayed in stores bears an unmistakable resemblance to the way old relics are presented in cathedrals. And trust me, that is no accident. The products are placed on pedestals or in these pristine glass displays, and the most important thing was the amount of space between each product. Some of the store displays also had lights behind each object, giving them this soft, refined glow. Just for comparison, I went to Macy's, which is a respectable department store, but the experience was totally different. The way they crowded all the products together in these dusty, scratched up cases just made them feel cheaper somehow, like each item was competing for your attention. The space wasn't designed to highlight individual items, but to showcase as much merchandise as possible. Even the display materials felt cheap and old, and the entire store was bathed in this harsh, greenish fluorescent light. One section of Macy's had a corner with a bunch of $1,000 Montblanc pens. But under the fluorescent light, the low ceilings, and the fingerprint-covered display cases, everything just felt tacky and plastic. Later, I visited the Montblanc flagship store a few blocks down the street. The merchandise was presented way more nicely, and the space genuinely transformed the perceived value of the objects. This stark contrast demonstrated the power of space. That's one of the real reasons why the fashionistas at Palessi's were willing to spend $600 on a pair of $20 shoes. It works both ways, too. You wouldn't spend $30,000 on an Hermes bag if it was in the back of a grimy 7-Eleven. You might think you never fall for something like this, but the numbers tell a different story. Throughout the 1990s, architect Peter Marino did over-the-top redesigns of dozens of luxury stores. Each flagship renovation cost up to $20 million. Despite the steep price tag, these overhauls often resulted in a 20 to 40% increase in sales, allowing brands to recoup their investment in just 2 years. And keep in mind, the stores sold the exact same products at the exact same location. It was just the design of the space that changed. Even in a luxury store where everything really feels VIP, there are areas reserved for the real VIPs. Many luxury stores have semi-private alcoves or side rooms designed for a more personal experience. When I visited one store, I saw a couple in one of these rooms sipping champagne and getting the royal treatment. I overheard a sales associate jokingly ask, "Oh, should I call you Baroness or Princess?" as the associate handed her like a $2,000 pair of shoes. The whole scene was just surreal. The customers were surrounded by piles of shoes, bags, and dresses, just sort of lounging luxuriously. And what made it especially interesting was that you could overhear their conversation, but the space was clearly sectioned off. It was visible, but it wasn't accessible. And that's part of the genius of it. The design of the space itself created desire. It's like you were so close yet so far from being in that world. But it's not just the store space. Another important aspect of space and place has to do with where the luxury objects come from. Luxury has always been intertwined with the allure of the exotic. Something from a faraway place carries a mystique. In today's world where nearly everything is accessible with a few clicks, it can be hard to grasp the true weight of this concept. But imagine living in ancient Rome. Luxury items would come from the East, things like Persian spices and perfumes, or Asian gold, gems and silks, Arabian cinnamon. People would travel for months, even years, to acquire these things, through dangerous trade routes or across treacherous oceans with crude navigation tools. Even today, luxury still relies on the allure of the exotic. It's not enough for something to just be rare. It needs a sense of mystique to make it desirable. This is probably part of the reason why I'm into Japanese eyewear. It's also probably why people in Japan are absolutely obsessed with European luxury brands. So when you buy a luxury product, you're buying a small piece of its native soil. Take a Rolls-Royce, for example. Part of what makes it feel special is its English heritage. When you think of Rolls-Royce, you might think of a group of dedicated English artisans working in a well-lit studio, meticulously constructing beautiful vehicles. They're treated well, and most importantly, they care about what they're making. When you buy a Rolls-Royce, you carry that vision with you in your mind. That setting, that place is easily as important as the end product itself. But when a luxury brand strays from its cultural roots and moves manufacturing elsewhere, it loses a big part of its identity. This is an ongoing issue with luxury brands. I mentioned earlier in the video that I don't consider luxury fashion brands to be true luxury. One reason is because they're more trend-based and fashion-oriented, but there's actually a bigger reason. In order to meet demands and improve their already massive profit margins, many of these brands have moved their production overseas. These companies go through great pains to hide the real country of origin. They'll sometimes hide the Made in China label deep in an inside pocket. Other companies will have the majority of the product made overseas and then import it into Western Europe or the US for the finishing touches in order to make it technically made in France or made in the USA. Brands intentionally make it impossible to find the answers. But it's sort of an open secret in the luxury world that barely anything is made in the claimed country of origin anymore. Now, changing the country of origin on its own might be acceptable. There are plenty of fantastic craftsmen all over the world. Plus, luxury is also about being exotic, like I said before. If your product is made in a faraway land because it makes the product better, that actually is very much aligned with classic luxury. But this becomes a problem when it's being done as a cost-cutting measure. Companies will go to insane lengths to make sure they can legally get that Made in Italy or Made in France tag purely as a branding play rather than as a reflection of quality. The Dior scandal of June 2024 is an unfortunate example. A manufacturer for Dior flew foreign workers to their factories in Italy. But these workers were not craftsmen lovingly hand-stitching together handbags in well-lit studios. Instead, they were operating heavy mass-production machinery for 12 to 16 hours a day, often forced to sleep overnight in the factory. In some cases, the workers weren't even given proper contracts or paid on time. One report even showed they had removed safety devices on the machinery to increase production speed. The illegal working conditions were bad enough. But when you learn that Dior was producing these bags for just 53 euros and then selling them for a staggering 2,700 euros, it makes your stomach turn. That's a 5,000% markup. These practices allowed Dior to slap a Made in Italy label on a handbag, but in the process, they totally ignored what made that label special in the first place. The issue here isn't just labor exploitation, although that is a huge part of it. It calls the entire luxury industry into question. If Dior can do it, who's to say the whole system isn't compromised? And if you're not buying for quality or handmade craftsmanship and ethical production, what are you buying for? It's important to remember that Dior is not just a brand. Christian Dior was a designer who dedicated his life to beauty and craftsmanship. He passed away in 1957, and I can't help but think he'd be horrified by what's happening under his name today. So where did we go wrong? In the last 40 years, the industry has shifted from small, family-owned businesses run by artists and designers to global, multinational corporations. There was a time where quality and creativity really mattered, but as luxury brands became publicly traded companies with shareholders pressuring owners for continued growth, things changed. The CEO of LVMH, the parent company of Dior, Louis Vuitton, and dozens of other luxury brands, is named Bernard Arnault. He's sitting on a net worth of $175 billion. He's like the 5th richest man in the world, richer than Warren Buffett. Sometimes he's the richest. You don't make that kind of money unless you prioritize profit above everything else. True luxury goods are some of the closest things there are to functional art. But when you move to mass production, the magic fades. It's just another assembly line product. Maximizing profits in the corporate world has always been, and will always be, the downfall of true luxury. Companies sell you a vision, but sometimes that vision is just a mirage. So is it ever worth buying a luxury product? It's tough to say. At its worst, luxury is about price gouging, elitism, and wasteful excess. But at its best, luxury represents genuine creativity, craftsmanship, and timeless beauty. To paraphrase Bill Watterson, when all we value is ruthless efficiency, we deny our own humanity. Without an appreciation for grace and beauty, there's no pleasure in creating things, and no pleasure in owning them. Beauty is a human need. The bigger a company gets, the further it drifts from the creator's original vision. The drive for profits overshadows creativity and integrity. Just look at Dior. Luxury used to be about commissioning something made just for you. It was a relationship between creator and client based on mutual respect. You were a benefactor supporting their skill, and the object you received was a symbol of that relationship. Big companies try to imitate this, but it can never be real. It's a one-sided relationship that's ultimately based on how much money you spend on their products. But when you buy from an individual creator, you become a patron of their life's work. They respect you, and you, in return, honor their talent and dedication. That's where there's still magic in luxury goods. So yes, luxury can be worth it, but only when you're investing in something personally meaningful, something that reflects real passion, creativity, and skill. The spirit of creativity and the desire to create something beautiful will always exist. Big shout out to everyone who helped with this video, especially my patrons. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Have a great day.